Hello everybody, Mike with Spray Jones. Merry Christmas to you. By the time this video 5 in the fake news series will be launching, it'll be Christmas week leading up to. So I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. On the subject of fake news, we are going to get into whether the spray foam insulation will melt and cause a fire. Will it damage the plastic wiring? Will it damage the plastic piping in your house? Is it susceptible to easily lighting on fire? Those kinds of things. So what do we need to hear about foam? Does it actually melt? Well, the answer is no, it does not. The reason being is that spray polyurethane foam insulation is a thermoset. It's a thermoset polymer, and these polymers are irreversibly cured, which is induced by heat. So there is an exothermic reaction, and when that happens, there's a cross-linking of the molecules, and the plastic is now permanently locked in to its new state. The way that this works with our spray foam is that when we are spraying under high pressure, we have warmed the product up to lower the viscosity, promote mixing, because it's easier to mix something that's thin than it is thick and gluey. We also want the product to atomize. We don't want a jet stream. We want a atomized fine pattern, a round pattern, so that we can control depth of material where we're placing the material. During this time, we've added heat to it to promote all of this, and then there's an exothermic internal reaction going on. And what ends up happening is the polymers cross-link, and the chains are produced in a network, a 3D rigid cross-linking network that stops their ability to revert back into their original liquid state. So this, on a permanent scale, is exactly what we want. We're having a longevity, multi-generational product here when we've placed it into the walls, into the roof, under the slab. We don't want the product turning to mush. We don't want it absorbing water. We don't want it reverting back to a liquid state. We want it to stay permanent in its plastic state. The advantage that cross-link polymers are is that they are far more rigid and far more permanent for longevity purposes. So when you have a plastic that you want for abrasion protection, or you want a coating that isn't going to let up, it's going to stand up to 20, 30, 40 years of weather, this is exactly what you want. The properties that you get with these 3D linked structures are that they are going to be physically stronger than they would be with just a thermal set. Now, everybody knows a thermoplastic. A thermoplastic is something where if you put a cigarette lighter to it or a match to it, it's just going to drip and become a liquid ball out on the floor, right? Whereas a thermal set versus a thermoplastic won't do that. It'll just char, it'll burn, it'll smoke, but it will not revert back to the liquid. That means that we have higher temperature rating abilities. So when it comes to electrical wiring, we can withstand higher temperatures. We can have higher temp products in contact with the foam. The mechanical strength and hardness is improved of the foam. It's not going to be as soft. It's not going to be quite as flexible unless we specifically design it to be that way. And then obviously it cannot be melted or reshaped after the cure. So it's going to stay in the permanent state, which is exactly what we want it. We want it to stay in the location that we've placed it in the building envelope. So realistically, is heat a problem during and with spray foam? And the answer is no. There is no big problem with the heat. Now, it is possible for an idiot to go and spray a non-stop, huge amount of spray foam into either a large open area. Maybe you're spraying a test bung between your ankles. Maybe you had problems with your gun and you're testing. And you could spray out a huge mass of foam all at one time, and then yes, that could create high temperature problems in the core, and that's a big no-no. Likewise, you could get into a deep cavity, and instead of filling up a cavity in increments, 1, 2, 3 different passes, you go in and try and fill it up all at one time, and that creates a problem. But folks, that's kind of like sitting there and saying that, you know, there was an idiot that poured the concrete on your driveway and they didn't float it right and they didn't prep it right, and they poured out too much and they weren't able to screed it right, or if they were putting down tile floor, they mixed up too much thin set and the thin set started to dry before they could get it all down. Like, these application parameters did you open up too much paint? Did you skip putting the primer on? Did you skip putting, mixing the stuff, giving it a stir before you put it? Did you just open up the container and put the paint sprayer in and start spraying, and then all of a sudden the paint's running down the wall and it's not equally blended and mixed properly? Like there's lots of violations that any single person can do on any type of application. So I guess it stresses the importance of having somebody that is knowing what they're doing. And one of the things that I have said in many past videos with the spray foam installation is that this is an apprenticeship program, and you want somebody who knows what they're doing training you. This is not a weekend warrior thing. You don't rent my rig, you don't go out and try and spray some foam and do it yourself. This is where you need to get into. There's certain parameters that need to be followed, certain procedures that need to be adhered to, and when you stay within those procedures, just like anything in life, if you don't drive drunk, you're probably not going to have a problem with hitting stop signs in cars and going into the ditch. So that being said, what about spraying the foam around electrical wires? Well, it just so happens I've actually done a video on that. So 2 years ago, I did an electrical wiring video because there was a lot of questions pertaining to the spray foam. I've got two here on whether or not you should be doing electrical prior to the spray foam, but this is the one you're going to want to see here on the video on spray foam installation electrical wiring, going to the 1998 CAN ULC test, where they tested whether or not the spray foam was going to cause two things. One, damage to the outside electrical insulation, and then whether or not the spray foam around it, closed or open cell, would cause a spike in temperatures of the electrical wiring. And there's just really no need to go into extensive coverage of that, since this video explains all of it, that no, it's not a problem. No, when the spray foam is sprayed at the correct thickness and the correct intervals, there's no damage to the wiring, and it's not causing a spike in the temperature. That's going to be determined based on gauge of wire that you're using and the amount of draw, whether you're having the correct amp draw and correct breaker on that particular line. But you can go in and watch that video where we go over it, and there's just no need to bring it in here right now. So what do we say then about the spray foam? It's not going to cause damage to the electrical wiring. It's not going to cause damage to plastic water piping and drain piping and sewer piping. If it's sprayed in the correct amount of lips and the right amount of intervals, it's fine. In fact, there's a huge safety factor with that. You've got to be way in the hell over the minimums and maximums. And you're not just going to have a bad day where you sprayed an extra quarter of an inch or half an inch that you were supposed to, and all of a sudden, poof, you got melted wires. Parameters on application are very important. We'll get into that in another video, where a lot of people have become weary of, cold weather application, hot weather application. Are we really getting into some sort of hit and miss quality control type thing? Is this really just some sort of gigantic experiment on site or not? We'll answer that, because that's pretty easy to take. But this is an apprenticeship program. This is complicated equipment. It's no different than learning machining or welding or any type of even auto mechanics, where you're going to have to put things back in a certain order with certain other assistant products. There's an order to everything in life. So I don't see this being a problem. The exothermic reaction is not going to cause problems to the electrical wiring, the plumbing, or you in your home. Can you set fire to the house? I suppose so. To wrap this up, I want to tell you a very quick story about how a bunch of idiots got spray foam blamed for something. They were fiberglass insulating a house. It was being done in the middle of winter. It was a brand new construction. There was a couple of brand new homes all in a row going up, and they showed up, I think it was between Christmas and New Year, to get going on this, because there was a break in the weather. It was going to be a little bit warmer, but not real warm. So they were in there, they were working, and one of the things they had to do was put can foam around the windows and doors. And the building was cold, and they had a couple of running propane heaters, open flame propane heaters. I think you can imagine where this is going. And they were using the propane heaters to warm up the inside of the building, warm up their building materials, so that the plastic, the tapes, the caulking, and all of that wasn't so cold, and they could work with it. They were also using it to warm up the foam. The can foam was quite warm, or quite cold. And so They had placed the cans, forgot the cans in front of the heater, and the cans ruptured and exploded. And when they exploded, they released the contents, and there was an immediate ignition of the spray foam or can foam, and boom, fire broke out. And by the time they realized what had happened, the fire had got going in this beautifully dry interior of the house, set the house on fire, burned that house to the ground, and burned the next two beside it. And it made the news that spray foam, contractor working with spray foam lights house on fire. And we had to sit there and explain that one for about a year and a half, until finally enough people knew what had happened that the word had gotten out. No, these knuckleheads had put the can foam in front of the open flamed heater and forgot about it, and it burst into flame. At which point, why is it not supposed to burst into flames and cause problems? And yeah, if you burn one house up, you could burn three. So somebody had a real bad day on their insurance, and those are the kind of things that happen. So you need to sort out fact from fiction, and you need to sort out what can the spray foam do, what is it realistically going to do, what can go wrong. Anything can go wrong at any time with any building. You can have a framer mess your house up, you can have an electrician mess your house up, you can have a concrete guy mess your house up, okay? So any trade, as a human being, is capable of making mistakes and not doing what they're supposed to in the correct order with the correct material. So I don't see spray foam being inherently this problem just waiting to happen, and you were the fortunate one that didn't. I've been spraying foam with my company. We've been in business now for 19 years, and I've been in the spray foam industry now for 24 years. It'll be my 24th year here in 2024. This is how we make our living. This is the kind of work that we do. No, there's not a problem. Ask anybody that knows what they're doing and has turned this into a successful trade. Meatheads will always have problems, right? We want to run them out of the industry. That's why these videos are being created, to educate you, the consumer, as to what's going wrong. So stick to the way that your spray foam is supposed to be installed. Stick to the per pass. Stick to the way it's supposed to be. There are high build foams now that can do 3, 4, and 5 inches in a single pass without causing damage. So the chemistry is there. It's capable of doing it. It's verifiable. It's scientific. And go ahead, get the right person, the right product, and the right install, and you won't have a problem. So I'm going to leave this video here. There's not a huge problem with spray foam and causing heat related issues, and we'll catch you on fake news number 6 probably in the new year. Talk to you then.